Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Lifetime Legacy Lawyer podcast. I'm your co-host, Thomas Vick, joined by our co-host, Seth Wilson. Seth, how's it going today?
Thomas, we're doing great today. It is hard to believe we are already in the month of October. We're rolling
Get your
fast.
costume. Get your
That's
costume ready.
We are going quickly toward the last quarter of the year. So, kind of thought today might be a good time for us to talk a little bit about the marketing aspect of your firm and kind of compare some notes on what things we do that have worked well, what adjustments we're kind of planning for the new year. And I think it would be helpful just from our context to kind of centralize around the estate planning, elder law, and those types of areas of practice. And so I'll throw it over to you to get us started. Kind of what is your big picture, and then we'll drill down into some more of the details as we go.
Yeah, well, the big picture is you've got to do something that will, number one, get the phone ringing, and number two, keep it ringing. That's kind of the number one rule as far as marketing is concerned. Just you got to find some method that is going to consistently bring prospective clients to your law office. And just there are so many different ways of doing it. From my perspective, certain ways are more effective than others. When I first started out and I was a general practitioner, I signed up for nearly every single category of practice area that I could on the Indianapolis Bar Association's lawyer referral service. I got all kinds of cases, all kinds of landlord tenant cases, personal injury cases, um, you know, somebody's dog got hurt or something. I got that case. Just all kinds of different things like that to keep the phone ringing. And as we're a podcast that talks about how to help lawyers launch, that's a great resource, I would say, is to use the local bar association and see if there is some kind of referral service that they have. At the time that I was using the Indianapolis Bar Association's referral service, the deal was whatever fees that you make, you pay a certain percentage, maybe 10% of the fee back to the lawyer referral service, and that kind of helps fund the bar association. So it's kind of like extra dues that you're paying to the bar association. And you get all kinds. So a lot of the people that called me, there was just no way that I was going to be able to help them. But from time to time, you would get a case that you could help out with, and you were able to make a little bit of money and keep the lights on for that month. That's kind of where I would start, is just find something to get people calling your office.
Yeah, what a walk down memory lane, because I'd kind of forgotten that part of the development of your practice. And I remember brainstorming a few of those cases over the years and trying to figure out what to do in the different scenarios. And that brings up sort of a whole host of other considerations as you're trying to develop that marketing plan. When you're first getting started, really everything seems to be a possibility, right? We talk about it as a threshold practice. Whatever walks across the threshold is the type of lawyer you become, because we can, as lawyers, become competent to handle areas of law that we may not be familiar with. Now, we have to do that within the bounds of the ethical rules and make sure that it makes sense for us to become competent on that and not be disadvantaging the client, if that's a word, in that sense of, hey, maybe somebody else would be better suited and much more economical for you because that's their practice area. And so you got to kind of take that balanced approach there. But in keeping with that concept of getting your name out there and getting involved in the community, there's a lot of other things you can do to join different types of groups and clubs that may be meeting, like a chamber of commerce, or around here it's called One Zone, where you get out and meet people and let them know that you're an attorney. And again, I think it's helpful to sort of know the scope of your practice area. Not that I can handle everything, but here are the primary things that I'm going to be trying to do as you're sort of developing that classic elevator pitch of who you are and what you're all about.
Yes. And, one of those groups that I uh, started to kind of network with, I can't remember the name of it. I want to say it was like Gold Star Networking or something like that. I think you and I may have gone to one of those meetings together once upon a time. And the whatever the name of it is, am I correct? Is that the name of it? Gold
Yeah,
Star?
that was one of them for sure. Gold Star, and I think there was BNI and a couple others around here.
Yeah, so I went to things like that, and you pay a little bit of money to be part of the group, and they try to have one person from every single kind of enterprise. So you might have an insurance agent, you might have a mortgage broker, you might have construction company, pest control, security, and they're always looking for an attorney. And they really, really want to have an attorney in there. And as a young attorney, I felt like, well, this might be a really good opportunity. The idea of the group is, you want to pass out referrals to one another, help each other's business grow. And I did that for probably about a year or two. And, we would go to a local breakfast place on Tuesday mornings at 7:30, and we would have breakfast, and then somebody would talk about their business. And then at the end, everybody would say, 10 or 15 seconds of a spiel about their business. And then everybody would go their separate ways. I think I got a couple leads from that, which was nice. But overall, I didn't feel like it was a great use of my time. I kind of felt like I was just gaining weight from all of the pancakes that I was eating on a weekly basis. So I felt like my time was going to be used better in the office rather than in that kind of a networking scenario.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that probably depends on your practice area. I know when I switched practices from where I was downtown Indianapolis to here, I didn't know the people of the community and didn't have the network, if you will, in this new location. And so it was a much more time intensive exercise for me to get out and get to know people and be known by people and build that relationship network again. And so it does require a lot of time and a lot of effort. And especially when you're trying to get legal work done that is billable to pay the bills, it can be hard to have that trade off and know, is it better to actually be out trying to generate more clientele or actually working with the clientele that I have? And you're constantly going back and forth on how that works. And there's an adage that is used in marketing a lot of times is half of what you do works, you just don't know which half, and so you're kind of afraid to stop doing any of it. And so I think that self-analysis of, okay, where is my time best being spent is really important, because there needs to be some sort of boundary on of you could become a member of every group that's out there and spend all your time out of the office and not actually getting any legal work.
Yeah, and I think I remember when you were transitioning from downtown Indianapolis to Adler Attorneys in Hamilton County, Indiana. It seemed like every time I talked to you, you were scheduling lunch with somebody. It seemed like nearly every day you had some kind of lunch appointment, trying to connect with folks in the community, trying to get to know people. And truthfully, that is marketing. Grabbing coffee with somebody. Um, I grabbed coffee with a financial representative probably 7 years ago, and he's still sending me referrals from time to time. At lunch appointments with folks. I've gotten referrals from people that I just happen to go to lunch with. So I mean, I guess it can be enjoyable, and it can, it doesn't have to be part of a group, but just kind of having a game plan of I want to have lunch with somebody that might become a referral source for me.
Yeah, and I think that's an important factor is people will like doing business with people that they like and enjoy being around. And if you've developed those relationships with folks that you enjoy being around, they're in contact with other like-minded people. And when those people have legal needs, that's a natural fit because personalities are going to work well together and skill sets and different things. And so I think sometimes you got to see the discipline of, boy, it does take a lot of effort, but also it breeds enjoyment because now you're actually building relationships and friendships with people, and you're ultimately doing it with the goal of providing service to a client who also hopefully has that capability to become, a friend of who you interact with. And a lot of times when you're able to build those relationships, the rest of the marketing is not really marketing. It's just you're out there and you truly care about what's going on. And you'll start to see over time that folks will be like, hey, I really need to sit down and see if I have anything to make an appointment about. Can we just grab coffee and talk about it? Or can we grab a lunch? And so you got to be, again, I think, very intentional if you can about what days are you going to allow that calendar to fill up. And probably earlier on in your practice, that's going to be a lot of the days you're going to use those slots of time to just get out and meet as many people as you can. And over time you kind of fit into, hey, this is really my niche area. I'm not really dealing with this kind of practice over here. I can get you connected with someone who does, but happy to just have lunch and chat and catch up and build those relationships.
There's something to be said as a part of this, that when you become an attorney, there's some kind of magical aura that envelops you, and people just see you and they're like, "You're an attorney. Let me ask you a legal question." I don't know. In my experience, that definitely happened to me. In 2014, when I became an attorney, people started asking me questions. I I didn't have any kind of frame of reference to know what they were talking about, how to advise them, or what have you. Yeah, it took contracts and real estate, but I don't know anything about what you're talking about. So I didn't really feel comfortable with that. That's just a matter of experience. You gotta work in the field of law before you can really know how to do it in a lot of ways. And kind of in my story, I had those questions at the beginning and then they kind of dropped off. And now it seems like now 10 years into it, they're coming back. So more and more people are starting to just see me and say, "Hey, I've got a question. Can you help me with this?" That can be an advantage as far as marketing is concerned. Maybe all you have to do is go to a baseball game of somebody at church, and boom, you're there, and you're supporting one of the kids from church, but at the same time, people see you and they're thinking, "He's an attorney. I've got this legal problem." But just being out there in the community is going to help you.
Yeah. And it's such an important point to your development and your confidence as an attorney, because I think a lot of us wrestle with imposter syndrome, right? I'm a lawyer, so therefore I know everything about the law. Well, that doesn't work in any other field. So why would we expect it to work in the legal field? A lot of times because people don't have much interaction with lawyers, or the ones that they do a certain type of practice area that doesn't involve day-to-day life legal questions. And when you do kind of a estate planning practice, you deal with so many different facets of the law and how they all interact because you're dealing with folks' money and their property, and that necessarily involves different aspects of law, right? So you may deal with an intellectual property question because somebody owns a trademark or a copyright, and they need to figure out how to transfer that, or some sort of license agreement. You're like, I'm not a patent lawyer. How do I handle these questions? And that's just something that you get more comfortable with over time. You get comfortable with being able to answer the client, hey, I don't know, that's not really my area, but here's generally how I would understand that to work. But if you'd like me to do some more research on it or connect you with a colleague of mine, who I've met through building relationships over time, I'd be happy to do that and get you some more answers to that question. And so that confidence, I think, develops over time and helps you better serve the community that you're a part of. And I think what you had mentioned there was like it's such an important thing to have those genuine relationships with people. And I think the byproduct of that is they see you out and about, they see how you carry yourself, they see that you're a person of integrity, hopefully, right? And they see that, okay, well, you treat people this way. I like that. That kind of matches my personality. Maybe then I'll feel comfortable trusting you with my legal question. And that's a big responsibility, I think. And if somebody has enough courage to come up and ask the question, I feel the responsibility of trying to help navigate that to the best I can for them and just make them feel comfortable interacting with a lawyer. I think you and I have talked about this before, but I've always had that approach that I want to lower that barrier to entry to being able to talk with an attorney because I didn't grow up around attorneys, so I don't know what the rules are. And so I figure I'll just do what I do and try to make myself approachable. And I think you just got to figure out your personality, even from a networking thing or a marketing thing, if you will. You got to know what you're comfortable with. I'm not a golfer. I'm not going to, close deals on the golf course, but I am going to, like you say, maybe attend a game or play sports with someone or do something that builds that relationship. And that hopefully then carries over into the other avenues of my life.
Right. Yeah. So being part of the community is a big deal as far as marketing an individual's law firm is concerned. But even you can have some processes in the law firm that can help your marketing efforts. And of course, I encourage everybody to take a look at your local rules as far as what you are or are not able to do as far as marketing is concerned. But in my practice, one of the best and most effective tools that I have is my email marketing, keeping in contact with my clients through an email newsletter that goes out once a week, and then there's a monthly newsletter that goes out monthly. That can, my clients open that at about a 25 to 30% rate, and it's kind of neat to see the individuals that are opening that tend to be the ones that are calling my office and they have follow-up questions and they've got additional work and they're referring other people to me. So it really can kind of become a boon for you after you've done a good job for a client. You're staying in contact with this client and staying top of mind for the client.
Yeah, such a key phrase is that top of mind. And one thing that I know you use a little bit of a different program, but there's multiple email marketing tools there that are available in today's world, which is great. The big key, I think, is just understanding how important it is to get the permission of the people you're going to be emailing. Because I think nothing will sort of be an affront to the individual than an unsolicited email from a law firm. And there's just so much that comes with that. And so you got to have that trusted sort of exchange and make sure that folks are opting in appropriately and the right tools for that job are important. And Clio, the system we talk about quite a bit here, has a CRM program called Clio Grow. Clio Grow has now implemented an email marketing tool inside of it, which is really great if you're in the Clio ecosystem because now all your contacts are in one place. You can use tags to create those email segmented lists that then are either super targeted to a specific outcome or if this is just a general client newsletter or what have you, and it will track even the opt-ins and opt-outs so you don't keep sending people emails who have asked not to receive because we all get so much email in today's world. You don't want to just have more noise and annoyance. So that I think is an important thing, that regular communication and sort of figuring out what works well for your client base. And we were actually talking about this because we just recently we do a quarterly newsletter here at the office, and we just recently sent out an updated newsletter, and it was like, well, there was questions among my staff about how do we determine who goes on the list and how do we make sure that they've opted in. And so I was able to explain sort of that process of, if you go back and look at our client agreement and our terms and conditions, one of the provisions is hey, you consent to receiving occasional emails from the office. And we've had this for a long time, and we haven't always utilized that email marketing, if you will. And then what is the content of our newsletter? And so we don't want to put anything out there that would be seen as trying to solicit work, because that's not the intent, but it's more educational. Hey, we were out at these events and we were able to present at these different things to provide some educational things, or here's an article we wrote, or something along those lines, or a blog post. And you can just re-disseminate some of that information that you have done. And it's just kind of a newsletter, right? This is just the news about our office, and you may not be interested in it. That's fine. Just delete it, or you can click the unsubscribe button. It's right.
Yeah. I found it to be a very helpful tool, and folks have complimented me. And really, it's really my staff that helps out with the email marketing, but it really has been appreciated by a lot of my clients. And there have been certain current events that have had a significant impact on my estate planning practice, whether it's the Secure Act, or here in Indiana, changes to Medicaid, the wait list for the Medicaid waiver program, things like that. The email newsletter has been a way for me to get that information out to clients so that they're aware of what has happened. I think it's kind of a neat thing when you see something in the news and then you get something kind of personalized from the law office about, hey, we're watching the news too. Here's what we're doing to address that problem in our law office.
Yeah. And I think that awareness, and again, you mentioned the phrase top of mind. Clients are top of mind to us, and we're thinking about how these issues, changes could affect our client base, and making sure that we're getting that information out just to be aware and make sure that they know, hey, these options are either available or they're going away, or how do we handle this? Earlier this year, we had the beneficial ownership reporting requirements, and that was almost weekly, and some occasions every couple of days it was changing of, you have to report and the deadline's coming up, and oh, wait a minute, no you don't, and yes you do, and no you don't. And the clients were very confused because at some level the advice had been, let's wait until a certain point before we make a decision whether we do or don't report. But then whether you had to or not kept changing. And so I think folks appreciated that up to date information, and having that tool set available to the office is really important to get that information out in front of the clients or potential clients very quickly and accurately.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a ton of time left here, but I wanted to at least note one more marketing method, and that would be seminars. As estate planning attorneys, sometimes estate planning attorneys do seminars. They talk about what is a trust, what is a will, what is a power of attorney, and do you need each of these documents? What's the benefit of each one? What's the disadvantage of each one? And, there are two different approaches, I would say. You can organize the seminar yourself, or you can be invited to present. And, I've done both. So I've organized the seminar, and I've sent out mailers to, hundreds of houses. And I've done that method before. And I've also done, seminars where I've been invited to speak. And before I tell my experience, Seth, what is your thought on seminars?
Well, I think they can be great. And the opportunity to share the same information to a lot of people at one time is obviously efficient. And I think it's helpful in those groups for someone may have a question and they're going to maybe not feel as comfortable asking the question, but somebody else did. And they asked the same question and they got the information that they needed. And again, it's ultimately about that education piece for the client so they can make informed decisions. And then they could follow up with the attorney to see if they needed to actually implement that or make a change or something like that. So I think they're very valuable. And interested to hear sort of your perspective on which of the two methods seem to be more effective for you.
Yeah, I would say do not pay to organize a seminar yourself because it has a very little return on investment from my perspective. The one time that I've done the seminar, yeah, I guess I've done a couple of seminars that I've kind of organized on my own. I wasn't invited, and they were kind of a flop. I really didn't have any new clients that came about from it. And it's a significant time commitment. It could be 2 or 3 hours of time out of the office, maybe even in the evening to go out and do this. And that's time away from not just your office, or maybe it's time away from your family with little return on investment. Maybe other people can do it better than I can. I'm sure that they do. But unless you're doing that kind of on a regular basis and you're kind of constantly mailing out, I don't know, if you just do a one-off seminar, you're probably not going to have a lot of success. You probably need to do it on a monthly or every 6 week kind of basis, mailing out, say, hey, there's this educational seminar, that kind of thing. But on the other hand, if you're invited to a place, maybe a financial representative wants you to come and present, talk about trusts or what other field of law you're in, that's a good opportunity. That's kind of a warm market for you to provide some educational resources to an audience. And then it's a natural thing. People will come up after you speak and ask you, hey, I got this question. And you may say, it's not really the best time to talk about this. Can we schedule an appointment to talk about this later? And then you've got an opportunity to um, get a client to retain you. So that's kind of my perspective. If you're invited to do a seminar, that's great, but I wouldn't organize it on your own, especially as you're getting started.
Yeah, I think that's the key is when you are younger in your practice, the time, effort, and energy required to host that when you don't really have that credibility already built up is going to be a challenge. But if you do get invited, I would show up in a heartbeat just because it's kind of the adage, you're not there to get clients, you're there to educate and build relationships. Clients will be a byproduct of that if you do that genuine. But if you're just there, boy, I got to sign up 3 new people, those aren't going to be lasting and helpful, I don't think, in the long run for your practice.
Yep. I think that'll do it for us today. Seth, I appreciate it. How can people get in touch with Lifetime Legacy Lawyer?
Well, same to you, Thomas. Always appreciate the time. The best way to find us is on YouTube. Go out and search for Lifetime Legacy Lawyers, and you can check the other content that we have out on the YouTube channel. And if you would like and subscribe to the video you're watching here or the podcast you're listening to, and that helps us get this information out in front of other lawyers who are looking to launch their practices. And we're also available wherever you get your audio podcasts, as well as the Lifetime Legacy Lawyers podcast. Well, Thomas, it was great to see you today. Thanks for the discussion, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Seth.